In the early 1980s in the UK, a new kind of Christian church expression emerged, one that was incredibly exciting, that was vibrant, full of passion, and above all, sought to connect with the local community where it was based. Right here on the streets of Dunstable, DCC, or Dunstable Community Church, was one of those fellowships. The story begins in 1984, right here in Luton Christian Fellowship. That was the very year that a challenge was given to a young family in this church. It was an amazing, breathtaking challenge, but one that they wanted to rise to. Doug, Helena, and Julian Richards were challenged by what they'd learned in this church. They were to draw on the great experience, their many years of experience in this church, and plant a sister church in their own hometown. In 1984, DCC had its first meeting here at the home of Doug and Helena Richards, number 38 Britton Street. They only had 8 people that joined them, but on that very first occasion, one person gave their heart to Christ. Before the end of November that year, Doug and Helena were joined by Paul and Janice Cottrell to form the first joint leadership of DCC. That leadership was to take the church forward for its next 8 hugely successful years. By the Christmas of 1984, this house was too small for DCC services. They had over 40 people in attendance, and so decided to have their first carol service at the Queensway Hall. They had that carol service the Sunday just before Christmas that year. By January 1985, DCC were holding regular evening services at the Queensway Hall. Not only were they holding the evening services, they were seeking to influence the community because they were having creches, ladies' keep fit classes, coffee mornings, junior church activities, weekday activities in the evening for young children. They were really beginning to be a community church. Also, as new people were coming to the church, they were having their first Christian foundation classes, and very, very significantly, their very first water baptism. Just 2 years after the church had been formed, Doug and Helena took another incredible leap of faith. Jointly with the church, they purchased a great Victorian villa on this road, Great Northern Road. This is it. It became affectionately known as Church House, and it needed a lot of renovation. And in the true spirit of DCC, the people rose to the challenge of renovating this building and using it as a family home stroke meeting venue for all the church's activities. On occasions, they had over 100 people gathering here for church fellowship occasions. This also housed the church's administration, and the administration office was held right here in the rooms above the garage. DCC moved from the Queensway Hall and began to meet here at Queensbury School in Langdale Road. It was to be their home for the next 9 years. It was going to prove to be a challenging time because every Sunday morning and every Sunday evening they would need to ship in the PA equipment, the seating and the musical instruments needed to have church services in this building. But the members of DCC, in true courageous form, rose to the challenge, and they experienced tremendous growth in their church community. They were involved in local outreach activities and also some national evangelistic initiatives too. It was a fantastic time for the church, and they grew from strength to strength. 1998 was going to prove to be one of the most significant developmental moments in the life of DCC. Up until this point, Doug Richards, its visionary leader, had been holding down a full-time job and taking care of the church. But now he made a brave decision to retire from his senior post in Vauxhall Financing and take on the full-time leadership of the church. In addition to Doug's move into full-time leadership, the church was formally recognized as a charitable trust, and its leadership increased with the addition to the leadership team of Trevor Marr, Clive Cook, and Rob McKinney. They also became its elders and trustees. The church was excited and growth began to continue. It was then that the church made another huge financial commitment. They purchased what was an almost derelict building. It was the old British gas showrooms in the heart of the town. But on the Christmas morning of that year, they began to worship in that building, and that has now become the center for DCC.
DCC is like an extended family, very supportive, full of love.
DCC is a fellowship with a people after God's own heart.
It's a great place where we have great times of worship, where we have a great family.
I met my wife at DCC.
DCC is still very committed to its core values and core focus. That is displaying the love of God vibrantly and relevantly to the community where it is placed.
DCC was founded on sound scriptural principles. One of the scriptures that inspired us to start DCC was found in Isaiah 60.
Isaiah 60 and verse 22 says this: "The least of you will become 1,000, and the smallest a mighty nation. I am the Lord. In its time, I will do this swiftly."
Worship is at the heart of life here at the church. But DCC understands worship as more than an event. It's a lifestyle. And so they're wanting to raise up a company of people who they can call 24/7 worshippers. People who love God every minute of every day, wherever they are.
It's great to be part of the worship team here at Dunstable Community Church and to lead the musicians and the singers and the congregation in praise to God every Sunday is just an awesome privilege.
In addition to being a worshipping church, DCC has always sought to network with the wider body of Christ. Working with like-minded Christians has been a real desire of this church leadership.
I met my husband at DCC.
Well, I just love coming to DCC because it's a young church, lots of lovely babies and young children, and that's really lovely because I live in a place where everyone is my age.
I'm here with Pastor Doug and Helena, and I'd like to ask them to share from their heart what they see as being the future for DCC, what's coming next.
When I think of the future of Dunstable Community Church, I can't help but think of all the babies that we've had born into the church recently. And our passion is that those children grow up to be men and women of God.
Yeah, it's important that DCC is seen as a home. If you ask any of our members, I'm sure they would tell you that they see their church as an extended family.
Isaiah 58 says, "Spend yourself on behalf of the poor and the hungry, then your light will shine." Church is a simple thing that over the years has become complicated by all manner of differing opinions. But church is quite simply intimacy with God and our faith in action outside the walls of a building in our communities. Any activity that DCC has fulfills one or both of these criteria.
We love this picture of the loving, caring family home, and our outlook for the future is based on the whole concept of the family home, loving and caring every individual.
Hi Com Church, it's me again, and as you can see I haven't really changed over the years, just the same, just as good looking as I've ever been. Listen, I wanted to talk a little bit about the recent history of what's happening in Com Church, a bit of a catch up on the things that you've been hearing and listening to. In 2009, DCC, as it was known then, took the biggest leap of faith they've ever taken and decided that they would take over the lease of 51 High Street North. It was a closed nightclub, Cubes nightclub, and previously it had been a cinema, and then it had been a bingo hall. But the church leaders, with an army of volunteers, incredibly generous givers, decided that they would step out and take on this challenge, turning this pretty derelict building into the state-of-the-art conference center.
I'll ride on your wings and soar. Holy place, your presence surrounds me. I feel your embrace, angels all around, and trumpets sound. Here
In 2014, DCC and the leadership made the decision to change the name of the church to ComChurch, a name that would reflect the many founding principles of DCC, such as we need to include more commitment to community, or let's make sure that in terms of mission, we still live under a commission. And let's be sure that whatever we do is fueled by an incredible compassion. In 2016, my dear friend, another Pastor Doug, who was the senior leader of the church, was challenged by some very serious health issues. So Julian and Sarah stepped up into the senior leadership of ComChurch and were incredibly supported by a team of senior leaders, trustees, and a great group of volunteers and those who were committed to the vision of the ministry. And they have seen the church grow from strength to strength, seeing the community of Dunstable touched by the power of God. Lives have been transformed, and many have come to know Jesus for the very first time. Our dear Pastor Doug eventually passed away in 2017, but his legacy continues to live on, not just in ComChurch, but in the whole community where this church is serving.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades.
These are the crazy days. We'll look back and smile on the whatever it takes days. We gotta stay strong.
But for now, I'm afraid you must once again stay at home.
Every minute, every second we're apart. Whoa. These are just the crazy days. These are just the crazy days.
The future of ComChurch is going to be exciting. There is the hope for a new all-purpose church facility in the next year. We look forward to that happening. 40 years have passed since the very first meeting of this church in Doug and Helena's front room, and many things have changed since then. But one thing that hasn't changed is the unwavering hope for Jesus and for his people. This production has been a bit of a whistle-stop tour on all of the locations and the buildings that have hosted ComChurch over the last 40 years. But we all know that buildings and structures are not what makes church. So we want to thank and express our love to everyone who's been a part of the ComChurch journey, whether for a short time or since the very beginning. You need to know and you need to remember that you are the church and our best days are not behind us. So ComChurch, let's look to the future with a sense of anticipation, with conviction, commitment, and courage for the purposes of God.